To put it simply, this docuseries can be summed up in 3 words: Blackness, belonging, and connection. In the summer of 2022, when the world was still recovering from COVID-19, we gathered at the historic Dunbar Pavilion in Tucson, Arizona, and created a space with the intention of bringing Black strangers together to recover and restore and to reflect through intergenerational conversations. Here are their stories.
Welcome back to Sherry's Take. Hi, how are you?
Are we going now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I did the, okay. Hi, I'm Abiola. How are you?
Good. I am Jennifer. How
What are
you
your
doing?
pronouns?
She.
Same, she, her, hers.
Mm-hmm.
They, them, I'm working on getting comfortable with that. Would you like to get started?
Let's get started.
Okay. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
I am a trauma psychotherapist is what I do.
Mm-hmm.
I am also a mom of 2 kids, 2 boys. Yeah.
And then how many years ago did you move here?
I moved here 14 years ago.
And then you started your PhD program 7 years later.
Yeah. So I'm a student, obviously, right? So that takes up a lot of my life. So I'm all of those things.
All of the things. I love it. I want to be like you when I grow up.
Oh, I want to be like me sometimes too. So what about you? Who are you?
My name is Abiola Mustapha. I am a newly minted, since we're gone on the student thing.
Yeah.
I'm a newly minted Doctor of Teaching, Learning, and
Yes.
Studies
Yes.
from a school that must not be named, but obviously it's here in Tucson.
Mm-hmm.
But I definitely empathize with you with being a student, with the PhD taking up a majority of your life and time and energy. I love yoga. I became a Pilates teacher while I also got my PhD. It was 500 hours, a very long time. Mm-hmm. But it was nice to graduate from somewhere at that 3-year mark, and then 3 years later, graduate with a PhD.
Where have you lived and what brought you to Tucson?
I have lived in Los Angeles, California, born and raised. And then for my PhD, I came here to Tucson. And I literally read it and I was like, Tucson, what is that? It's probably right next to Phoenix. I'll go. So I came. And I realized that Phoenix was 2 hours away.
Yeah. Nice. I have lived in Tucson 14 years, right? But native New Yorker. And what brought me here is an interesting story. I like to call it my yellow brick road experience. So I had this dream of me working with Native American women. And I was like, well, where's there a large population of Native American women? And New York has a large population, but that's upstate. And who wants to live the upstate New York? It's too cold. So I got in the car, drove to Tucson. I saw there was a job fair, and I got the job. They asked me to come back, and I was here a month later.
Wow.
Yeah. What is life about for you? What do you find most gratifying in your life right now?
Sleeping, creating art, making good food, reading a good book, being privileged to have a decent place to live, a full-time job in the era of Corona.
All the important stuff, right? Yeah. Life for me and what's the most gratifying is finding meaning. Everything for me is about meaning making. So I made a promise to myself that I would not engage in things that give me no meaning. It has to satisfy that thing inside of me that wants to feel like I'm making the most of my time in my life. So if it doesn't give me that, I won't participate in it.
Come on, say it again.
Yeah.
For the back.
All right, I'm not going to participate in it.
What piece of advice would you give someone who is thinking of moving here?
Know your why. Part of my why, I knew I saw myself working with a certain population, which I did do, but anytime something tried to take me off of that path, I kept reminding myself of the why.
I like to know your why. I also would caution anyone who is moving here to think about moving with intention. So what are your intentions with moving here? So I'm going to be the first to admit, I wasn't honest with myself. I was like, oh, I can, move here. I'll do a PhD, it'll be cute. 6 years later, I'm still here. If you want a busier lifestyle, move to a busier city. If you want a slower lifestyle, move to a slower city. I do thank Jesus that I did learn how to sit down and live at a slower paced life. Do I enjoy it? I'm learning too. But yeah.
I like this. What is bringing you joy lately?
As a recent PhD student, no longer. Just like going to work and coming home. I don't have to do homework anymore. Sorry if I'm triggering you.
Yeah.
I used to get triggered when people said homework around me.
For me, joy is I have a granddaughter that's 3 years old, and I am so loving that she is into all of the things that I love. So she is definitely bringing me joy. And I'm spending most of my time writing because that's what my skill level is actually, higher in that area. So I'm doing more of that.
I love it.
Yeah.
What values, ideas, and traditions would you like to see preserved, and which ones are you happy to see us shifting out of?
I guess it's a value in a cultural ritual of storytelling. I want to definitely see preserved. All of the things that we have put in our bag over the years and traveled through continent after continent with.
In terms of practices, I definitely am more of a historian, so I definitely see preserving our documents, all of our Black museums, them staying in those museums for the respective states in the US. And then the ones that I'm happy to see us shifting out of are all of those things that you mentioned about our elders sometimes saying questionable things.
Yeah.
Specifically about the LGBTQ community. I'm just come on now, yo. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on. How does your creativity express itself?
It expresses itself through writing. I just love to write. And I would write anything, whether it's poems and, short stories, novels, for a screen, anything.
I think that's a good question in terms of creativity. My creativity ebbs and flows. Sometimes it shows up in my hairstyles. I just have the wooden beads in. So for example, for the Black graduation that I went to, I had 2 rows of French braids, and then I did an ombre wooden bead set. And then for the College of Education graduation, I put in blues and purples and pinks and a little bit of tinsel and did a swoop-de-doop updo.
I love that. And I think so many times in our culture, we try to look at creative people and this person is flaky or they don't know what they want. Why don't you just pick one hairstyle and stick to it? In what groups, spaces, and activities do you feel a sense of belonging? What drew you to those groups, spaces, and activities?
To go back to the internet, a large majority of how I interact with people, especially since we're in the pandemic, people be acting like we're not, is being able to connect with other Black women who love to do yoga, who love to do Pilates, who love to do art. And what drew me to those spaces is not being able to easily access those spaces here in Tucson.
Yeah. I think where I felt belonging at was with my sorority. And they became my family because it's just me and my kids here, so they became my family. They're the ones that showed up for me, when I have surgery. And that definitely created that space for me where I felt okay, I'm gonna be okay.
Do you feel you have access to Black community and culture in Tucson? And if so, where? And please tell me.
I do feel, is it like New York City? No. You got to know people, you got to know where to look, you got to,
Show up every other Tuesday.
Right. So I feel like it's definitely Black culture that I found here. And like I said, through my sorority, right, I was able to find different activities where I'm oh, wow, it's a lot of us here. Where have you been? So it's community. I think that's the thing now, is the definition of what is community, right?
So I'm are my academic sister friends a part of the Tucson community? That's my question.
Oh, is it your community that you have in Tucson?
Yeah.
Right?
So it counts.
Yeah, I think that counts.
Oh. I was
What changes would you like to see in Tucson?
How how negative am I going to be this morning? It's not Sunday, so I'll be somewhat negative, 50% negative. We give the university and all the land that was taken over back to the natives and start over. And if there's resistance, burn it down and give it back to the original people.
For me, I think I would go towards education, you know, especially having a young child in the system. So I think the way just education as a whole, and the way that I think representation, seeing more Black people in not just roles of teachers, but in administrative roles and things like that.
Tell us about a particularly challenging experience you've had as a Black Tucsonan. How did you navigate that challenge?
Oh.
Long-suffering sigh.
It's like, where do I start? You know, as a psychotherapist in Tucson, that has been rough. During the pandemic, like majority of my patients, clients are mostly white or Hispanic. So I had challenges with a few of my white clients that called COVID-19 the New York hoax. And then they would say, "Oh, but how are you?" And I said, "Oh, well, we just finished burying like 5 people that I know that died from COVID-19, the hoax." You know, so let's go back to compassion and let's talk about.
I'm here for it, gathering them together.
Let's talk about being compassionate towards other people. We don't know what people are going through. Okay, so what do you appreciate about the person across from you, and what do you appreciate about yourself? I appreciate your openness, and I love the fact that you're just so open to kind of share your experience. And I like that because it's easy, and I'm like, oh, I had that same experience. That is so cool. And sometimes we think like it's just us. And I think we know in our mind that it's not just us. Yeah. But sometimes it feels
and
like.
We have that main character energy.
Yeah.
It's me. Yeah. I appreciated that when I walked in the room and I saw all of the beautiful Black people, I noticed you first because you have on yellow.
Yeah.
And I appreciate your nails clean.
Thank
French
you.
tip.
Yes.
Amazing. I appreciate that you continue to live your life well, that you take care of yourself and prioritize yourself before anyone else, even though you still have little ones. Well, one little one and one grown adult. And then one thing I appreciate about myself similarly is that I show up as my whole self unapologetically in every space that I am in, and that I not only prioritize my self-care, but I also like fiercely protect it too.
Are we done, or should we do another?
Let's do a cheers.
Okay.
Cheers to us being finished
Oh.
before lunchtime.
This is pretty heavy.
It's huge.
Cheers.
Cheers.